The Night Lurker. This is a true story, and this is the first time I'm sharing it on the internet. I was born in a small town called Americana in Brazil. I know the name is kind of odd, and this is because the city was founded by North Americans who fled from the US after the end of the Civil War, so they could still keep up with slavery. Hence the name Americana. I recall many weird things that happened during my childhood, but this one stands beyond reasoning. I don't care if you believe me or not, but maybe someone out there has had a similar experience. It was around 1997 or 1998, and I was living in this new neighborhood since 1995. This was not some kind of friendly or normal neighborhood. This was where poor people like my family went to live when things were not so good. To help you understand a little bit of the environment I was living in, let's begin with a mental picture. The door of the bathroom in my new house had a lot of stab marks on it. This was due to a boy who lived there before us, who tried to kill his sister with a switchblade, but she locked herself in the bathroom. Also, I remember that near my house we had a blood stain on a light pole because a drug dealer made a guy do Russian roulette with a fully loaded revolver. This is all just a fraction of what I endured during my childhood. Since the good families who lived there were kinda afraid to go out at night, we didn't usually leave our house after sunset, and this is why it took so long for people to notice what was happening. Every once in a while, the dogs of the neighborhood would bark like they were possessed, and it was always followed by a dead silence. People thought at first that it was because of some drunk-ass dude walking on the streets at night provoking the dogs, but they were wrong. Some people swore by their children that they were seeing an insanely huge black dog when looking through their windows, and this dog was scaring the other dogs. Since it was always common to see weird dog breeds, especially in those poor neighborhoods where all the dogs could go outside and reproduce like there was no tomorrow, everyone who didn't see it just thought that it was a normal, huge dog. This was until the black dog jumped into the house of one of my neighbors. Those neighbors lived one house away from mine. They were friends of my family, and I remember there were 4 of them, a man, his wife, and their 2 girls. On this night, the man was just chilling inside his living room when he heard his dog cry like someone had hurt her. Afraid that it was someone trying to break in, he got a knife and went to look outside. What he found was mind-blowing. His dog was cornered and frightened. He was carefully searching for the reason for that until he stepped on something. He got his lantern and took a better look. It was a mix of blood and an insane amount of black fur. Since his dog also had black fur, he immediately started to examine her, but she was unscratched, not a single wound. Next day, he told us this story. We went to his house to see the blood fur thing. It smelled like a rotting corpse. No one could come up with an explanation until one of his girls noticed that one of their walls had a small blood mark, and also a bit of fur. The wall was huge. No way a dog could climb and jump over it. Also, this wall was the one that separated their house from the back street one. Since us humans are curious creatures, we got a ladder to climb and look over the wall. They wouldn't let me climb over there since I was just a child. Luckily, my brother told me everything that he saw. When he looked over the wall into the back street house's yard, he saw a huge wooden pole. It had broken chains attached to it. Around the pole, he saw a mixture of blood, fur, feathers, and the carcasses of several chickens. The people who lived there was an old couple and their son, who was believed to suffer from a mental disorder. Also, they had another son who died or disappeared years before that, but I can't remember for sure. They didn't speak much with anybody, and we knew very little about them. My family and our neighbors couldn't come up with a conclusion. They thought that the old couple actually had a black dog who suffered from rabies or something like that. No one dared to question the old couple, because maybe they already had too many problems to deal with and no one wanted to bother them. And since nobody got harmed, there was no need for that. Things went quiet for a while until we heard a gunshot at dawn. Gunshots were a common thing around here, but the aftermath of that particular one was not what you would expect. My mother told us that the husband of one of her friends who had lived on the back street shot something. He was a cop and was coming back from his night shift when he spotted a weird creature staring at him and shot it. Obviously, my brother and I went to see the corpse of said creature. The back street was the last one to have houses. In front of it, there was only a huge empty field. The corpse was laying there. When we arrived at the scene, we spotted some kids poking the corpse with sticks, and other people trying to figure out what it was. I will try to describe it as best as I can. It was huge, a little bit smaller than a bear. The body was muscular and covered in black fur. The face was nowhere near that of what a dog's face should look like. It was similar to a human face, with bestial features. The teeth were similar to human teeth, but the canines were bigger and very white, like they were new. But the most notable feature for me were the red eyes. Blood red. Also, I can't forget the stench of 100 rotten corpses. Unfortunately, we didn't have cameras. Those things were for rich people back then. My brother and I went back home, and we were baffled. Our parents didn't bother to go and see it because they thought that we were exaggerating, but they regretted it afterwards. That night, on the same day, my mom's friend, whose husband had shot the creature, saw something unusual. She heard some noises in front of her house and tried to spot what was happening from her front window. She saw a small army truck, something we had never seen around here before. Some men put the creature in a black bag, dropped it inside the truck, and left. One thing that my mom's friend emphasized was the fact that there were 3 men pushing the truck, and the engine was turned off. After that, we never heard about the creature again. Not a single thing about it in the local newspaper. Nothing. After a few months, the old couple I mentioned before suddenly moved out. I never heard about them or their son again. This is one of the most vivid memories that I have from my childhood.